Good afternoon to everyone joining us via Zoom. Today we have our tourism management class, and they will be looking at the issue of mandatory vaccination. Should vaccinations be mandatory for hotel workers? And this topic was deemed important because, of course, it is a contemporary hospitality issue, not only in Barbados, but certainly globally. There has been a lot of furor around the topic, and we have opposing views and opposing positions. So because we wish our students at the university to engage in these types of debates, they are the future leaders, we thought it necessary, important, critical that they do some research and present their own position on this topic. This debate this afternoon is a collaboration between Tourism Overhall and the University of the West Indies, in particular, the Department of Management Studies. We have a history of engagement with the industry, and therefore this is not unusual. The university normally extends an invitation to industry to join us, but this is one of the initiatives this semester where we actually have an industry player, so to speak, approaching us and saying we want to collaborate on this issue. I wish to acknowledge I want to acknowledge Dr. Kerry Hall, the key collaborator, owner, presenter of Tourism Overhall. Thank you very much for this collaboration. I also wish to acknowledge before we start, Ms. Saffron Griffith, attorney at law, who has been instrumental in assisting the students with preparing for this debate in terms of structure, argument, and so on. So Ms. Griffith, I wish to acknowledge you and thank you for your assistance.
Thank you.
I wish to acknowledge in our audience this afternoon, the HR manager, Courtyard, Marriott, thank you very much for joining us, Miss Arlene Brooks. And coming in the chat a minute ago is my head of department, Dr. Dion Greenwich. Thank you very much for making this meeting and deeming it so important that you have decided to grace us with your presence. And students, of course, thank you very much for coming out and supporting your colleagues. That is always a good show of collegiality and teamwork and professionalism. So I want to acknowledge you this afternoon. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to the collaborator with the University Department of Management Studies. Dr. Greenwich, I acknowledged you a bit earlier. I don't know if you heard me.
I didn't hear, but even everyone, thanks. All the best students.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Kerry Hall to bring a few words of welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts, for your kind introduction. Good day, everyone.
Good day.
As Dr. Roberts alluded, my name is Kerry Hall of Tourism Overhall, and I would like very much to welcome all of you to today's session, today's important session. Now, we are extremely happy and excited to partner with the University of the West Indies and the Department of Management Studies on what we deem to be an extremely worthy initiative. Now, we at Tourism Overhaul believe that the voice of the youth needs to be included a lot more in the critical discussions and decision-making processes concerning the tourism sector. And that was one of the major motivations for creating a forum such as this today. One of our major aims going forward, therefore, will be to provide a platform to assist in facilitating this process of inclusion for our youth in Barbados, particularly at the University of the West Indies. We plan to throw our hat in the ring to engage these fertile, youthful minds by ensuring that they're given a voice and a seat at the table. For the future of tourism, in order for it to be secure, it is imperative that we prepare our tourism students to be the future leaders of the sector by giving them ample opportunities to apply the critical thinking skills they've acquired at UE to practical real-world solutions in order for them to assist us in bringing about a higher and much needed level of creativity and innovation to the Barbados tourism sector. We also need to provide them with the requisite ongoing, and the operative word here is ongoing, recognition, exposure, support, and encouragement that they need and deserve to build their confidence so that they too can play their part in taking this industry to the next level. I'm sure you would agree with me when I say all hands have to be on deck at this extremely critical juncture of Barbados's tourism journey as we seek to restart this industry in a COVID as well as a post-COVID world. How we plan for tourism today will determine the trajectory of the industry into the foreseeable future. And academia, namely the University of the West Indies and the Department of Management Studies and the tourism program, with its phenomenal research capabilities, will have an extremely critical role to play in assisting in this process. So let's fast forward to the matter at hand. Today, we're tackling an area that has been a hot button topic in recent months, as Dr. Robert just said, not just here in Barbados or the Caribbean, but across the world. The issue of whether vaccinations should be mandatory for hotel workers or not. Can this mandate be effectively implemented or instituted within the Barbados tourism sector or the Caribbean tourism, any tourism sector for that matter? That is the multi-million-dollar question. As Dr. Roberts also alluded, there's a lot of strong feelings on either side of the spectrum about this somewhat controversial issue. So I'm sure that we're all very eager to hear the students' perspective on this very topical issue. Even though there may be many divergent views on this particular matter, I do believe there is one thing that we all agree. One thing that we all agree on, and that is the fact that we need to get our tourism industry back on its feet safely and as a matter of urgency. We need to get our people back out to work. We need to return to normalcy. We need to get our businesses firing on all cylinders. Businesses that will be recovering and businesses as yet developed that will be created when new business comes. And we need to get them firing on all cylinders as we create a more sustainable and inclusive tourism industry that benefits all. All of this we have to achieve with the ultimate goal being to salvage our ailing economy. That is the end game. So without further ado, I'd like to wish our students the best of luck. Thank you, Ms. Griffa, for doing a great job with them. I'd like to thank all of our attendees for indulging me. And I only have one thing left to say. Let's get this show on the road. We look forward to it so much. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Griffa.
Good afternoon, students, specially invited guests, Dr. Hall, Dr. Roberts. Now, I just want to take you through like what I'd call the debate flow chart, how we'll proceed this afternoon. Very simple. We have 3 rounds. And let me just get into it. Round 1, teams will present their arguments for and against mandatory vaccination of employees in the hospitality industry. And there will be 3 speakers from each team. So let's get into it. So the first speaker from team 4, that's for mandatory vaccination, will deliver their arguments and they'll speak for 5 minutes. And I'm asking the students to bear the timeline. You need to have a person who manages the time because it's of vital importance that you stick within the time limit. And then the second speaker from team against will present their arguments. And this speaker will also speak for 5 minutes. Round 2, the teams will be given an opportunity to rebut their opponent's submissions. We tend to say submissions in law, really arguments too. And so how we go into round 2, the second speaker from team 4, because the first speaker would have presented their main arguments. The second speaker from team 4 will go first in this round and will speak for 2 to 3 minutes. So you're rebutting team 4's. You're rebutting team 4 submissions. Then the second speaker from team against will also speak for 2 to 3 minutes. And then I will summarize the salient points that I would have seen you presented in all your glory. And I'm looking forward to that. And then I'll invite you to go to the breakout room to finalize your closing arguments. And you would have 5 minutes to do this in the breakout room. Third round, this is the clincher. To me, this is the exciting part. The teams will present their closing arguments. So the third speaker from team 4 will deliver their closing arguments and will speak for 3 minutes. And then the third speaker from team against will present that team's closing argument and will also speak for 3 minutes. So, and then after both teams are presented their arguments, rebuttal and closing arguments, I will make some final comments on the entirety of the debate. So that is how we'll proceed today. I'm looking forward to you guys engaging your audience and employing the tips that you would have learned last week or 2 weeks ago, and just let's get going. It's a learning experience, and I'm sure you'll all benefit from this tremendously. So I'm handing over back to Dr. Roberts.
Yes, thank
to
you.
Start the process.
Thank you, Ms. Griffith. We now have Gavin Niblet, and you can engage your emojis on the reactions, clap, high five, thumbs up, just to show, collegial support. So Gavin, it's over to you.
Honored guests, Dr. Roberts, Dr. Hall, Dr. Greenidge, Ms. Griffith, esteemed colleagues and opponents, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The year 2020, a year in which many may never forget, a year in which our usual way of living was drastically altered. The hospitality industry, like many others, has suffered a devastating blow due to the pandemic. A scientifically proven combative has been developed by various medicinal companies which are proven to reduce the mortality rate of the virus and lessen its transmissible rate. This combative comes in the form of vaccinations. Several pharmaceutical giants were able to produce vaccines which have been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. Since the creation of these vaccinations, there has been mass unrest and concern over the safety, mortality rate, and effectivity of the various vaccinations. My team and I will firmly show why indeed employees of the hospitality industry should be subjected to mandatory vaccinations. Together we will show that 1, industry employees have a responsibility to the industry. Secondly, mandatory vaccinations are not unusual, and that low vaccination levels in the industry can affect the economy. What is an employee? An employee can be defined as an internal stakeholder who has been employed for wages or salary. Employees of the hospitality industry as stakeholders hold a responsibility to ensure the success of the industry. During this time, mandatory vaccinations for industry stakeholders are needed for the success of the industry. Monshotton and Haas 2021 have stated that countries with high vaccination rates are attracted to tourists. This statement shows that tourists are interested in the vaccination rate of the country. And one must notice that these same vaccination-driven tourists will be patrons of the hospitality industry, and as such are likely to do business within the industry. A Barbados Today article written by in 2021 stated that travelers were requesting service from vaccinated staff only and seeking to reside at properties with fully vaccinated staff. This shows that unvaccinated staff are harming the industry by deterring guests. Unvaccinated employees are at a higher risk of harming the industry compared to vaccinated ones. Unvaccinated employees possess a greater risk of contracting the virus and spreading the virus. This can cause lengthy sick leave periods, resulting in scheduling issues and workforce shortages. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has stated that the recovery period for a male case is within 2 weeks. This is 2 weeks in which industry businesses are short of staff or faced with further expenses. While it is true to say that vaccinated employees can also contract the virus and in return cause harm to the industry, the associated risk of vaccinated employees contracting and spreading the virus is significantly less, as well as the risk of hospitalization. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released a study in August 2021, which shows that unvaccinated people are 29 times more likely to be hospitalized. The topic of mandatory vaccinations within the industry is not an unusual position. The hospitality industry is highly interpersonal and calls for high levels of contact. As a result, infections and disease can be spread at a higher rate than normal. Guarino and Eckenbach 2020 has stated that restaurants are high-risk areas for the spreading of the coronavirus. History has shown us how hotels can be used as super spreaders. For example, the SARS outbreak at Hotel Metropole in 2003. As a result of this, most industry businesses have already possessed mandatory vaccination policies. Therefore, mandating the COVID-19 vaccination for industry employees would be nothing strange. A representative from the Human Resources Department of the Sand Lane Hotel stated that hepatitis immunizations, among others, were mandated vaccinations for staff. Passport Health 2021 states 4 common vaccinations that employees of the hospitality sector are required to have. Low vaccination levels in the industry may affect the economy. It is a known fact, whether liked or not, that tourism is one of the main contributors to the island's economy. The lack of mandatory vaccination does not only affect the health of the populace, but also the health of the country's economy. In this instance, health is indeed wealth. As aforementioned, COVID-19 vaccination rates affect consumers' interest in patronizing establishments. This may have the ripple effect of decreased tourist arrivals. Barbados was ranked 7th with the highest share of gross domestic product generated by tourism, localized 2021. Therefore, a decline in tourism will significantly and adversely affect the country's economy. This can be curtailed or comprehensively prevented through mandatory COVID-19 vaccination within the industry. Due to these 3 factors, my team believes that employees of the hospitality industry should indeed be subjected to mandatory vaccinations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neblet. We now open the floor to team against Daniel Johnson or Daquan Allen. I'm not sure who is going.
Esteemed judges, specially invited guests, Ms. Saffron Griffith, attorney at law, Dr. Carrie Hall, owner Tourism Overhall, Arlene Brooks, human resource manager, Dr. Dion Greenidge, and all other members of the tourism board. My fellow colleagues, friends, and family, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Today we come forth united as we argue against mandatory vaccinations of employees within the hospitality industry. In Barbados, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused some hospitality organizations to question the need for mandatory vaccination. The COVID-19 vaccine has become the new phenomenon of today's society and has caused division among humanity. There are multiple reasons why a person should not be subjected to mandatory vaccinations. Today, we intend to present to you an argument which is succinct and grasps on thoroughly researched facts within the areas of health, infringement of rights, personal and religious beliefs, and vaccine ignorance, which aid in solidifying our view on the opposition of mandatory COVID vaccinations. Let us clarify one thing. An argument against mandatory vaccination is not an argument against vaccinations. And as such, this group acknowledges the benefits of the COVID vaccine, but believes that mandating employees in the hospitality industry is an unethical approach. And here's why.
According to Constantin Zetziaru, a professor in human rights law at the University of Liverpool, he stated that any form of mandatory vaccination cannot be considered legal, but rather to further analyze the details of the policy in each case. Mandatory vaccination can be considered an interference with the human right of bodily integrity, which is also connected to the right to private life in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Moreover, the legality of such policies depends on a number of situational factors. We now move on to vaccine ignorance, and that stems from 2 main areas. With development, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention notices that all vaccines carry a risk of a life-threatening allergic reaction. And evidence of this is shown as the CDC and FDA are currently monitoring of Guillain-Barré syndrome in people who had taken the COVID-19 vaccine. With the COVID-19 virus mutating and the need for a booster, this indicates signs of the virus yet to be fully understood. As it relates to informatory, the World Health Organization has stated that it does not support mandates for COVID-19 vaccination. This global health body believes that currently it is better for the government to work on information campaigns. Many Barbadians have voiced their opinions on this lack of information, and Prime Minister Motley said that her goal is to give information and not mandate vaccinations. Prime Minister Motley stated that I personally and my cabinet have all agreed that we should not mandate vaccines. We are philosophically opposed to the mandating of vaccines. That's not who we are as a people. We will work on getting you the information necessary, as it will help you make the decision and take the vaccine. This statement was taken from GIS Barbados. As it relates to the medical side of things, an article published by The Atlantic, written by Olga Kazan, titled "When Talking to Your Doctor Goes So Wrong," highlighted cases in which doctors advise patients not to receive the COVID-19 vaccinations. One such case was that of 22-year-old Brianna Baker, whose childhood illnesses left her with shrunken arteries, which places her at high risk of contracting myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart. And she also suffers with blood clots with her family history. Both of these issues are triggered by Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. Although these issues are rare, they can still occur. Young men, 16 to 19, had a 15 in 100,000 chance of developing myocarditis after their second shot. As it relates to personal and religious beliefs, persons should be able to make their own decisions on what they would like to do with their bodies. According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Article 2, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms outlined in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political, or any other opinions. Because vaccination is a branch of medicine, forcing someone to get vaccinated against their choice is a violation of their right. It infringes upon individual rights to freedom of choice. As it relates to religion, religions such as Christianity and Rastafarianism have both shown to be against implementation of mandatory vaccinations. Founders ministries have justified their stance against vaccinations by specifying that the Holy Bible does not instruct them on whether one should receive a vaccine, but it is clear when it comes to the doctrine of the liberty of conscience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for putting those arguments together for against vaccination. I'd just like to pause and acknowledge Dr. Christina Johnson, my fellow colleague who teaches tourism at the Cave Hill campus. Dr. Johnson, welcome to the forum. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts.
We quickly move on, and we have rebutting the proposition of Daniel and Daquan is Ms. Shanna Adams. Shanna, the Zoom floor is yours.
I want to thank my colleagues for so ably presenting their submissions on their stance on mandatory vaccines in the hospitality industry. The research was definitely well done. We understand that we are in the time for pro-choice, and we cannot force anything to anybody's throats. But the fact of the matter is that we are in a pandemic that would have been going on for almost 2 years. And when it comes to public health, there isn't necessarily an infringement on rights. So as we are in the pandemic, we see the state protects public health, which would be the issue with the pandemic. So we are looking at the protection of the entire nation and not just individuals itself. So according to the International Covenant Civil and Political Rights 1966, Article 6, 7, 8, 11, 15, 16, and 18 all speak to the freedom one has not to be subjected to any form of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatments and punishment. By extension, these articles make mention of one's power to refuse any medical or scientific experiments. However, Article 4.1 clearly states, and I quote, "In time of public emergency, which threatens the life of the nation and the existence of which is officially proclaimed, the state parties of the present covenant may take measure derogating from their obligations under the present covenant to the extent strictly required by the exigencies of the situation, provided that such measures are not inconsistent with their other obligations under the international law and do not involve discrimination solely on the ground of race, color, language, religion, or social origin. In other words, the articles provide state parties with the legal autonomy to take the necessary steps to ensure the prevention, control, and treatment of diseases or any other risk posed to the country. Governments have police power functions to protect the health and safety and welfare of persons within their borders. This is from the Center of Disease and Control Prevention. These are some of the actions they can take are enforce isolation and quarantine centers, travel bubbles, and health and safety protocols. Another point that they would have mentioned is, I'm sorry, oh gosh, an infringement. They would have dealt with the effectiveness of the vaccine, and we have seen that specifically Pfizer's vaccine was 87% effective. So there's nothing. So we don't have very much to worry about for the effectiveness. If we look at the okay, so the COVID vaccines. Sorry, the COVID vaccines are effective in preventing infection, serious illness, and death. Most people who get COVID-19 are unvaccinated. However, since vaccines are not 100% effective at preventing infections, some people who are fully vaccinated still get COVID-19. An infection of fully vaccinated persons is referred to a vaccine breakthrough infection from the CDC. Because vaccines are not 100% effective, as the number of persons who are fully vaccinated goes up, the number of vaccine breakthrough infections will also increase. However, the risk of infection remains much higher for unvaccinated people. So we have to look at the how the vaccine would be affecting those who are unvaccinated, and this is a matter of public health, so we need to make sure that everyone is protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanna. Excellent. On short notice, you really rallied through there. All right, and now we move to the next speaker, who would be Rico Tudor, to bring his rebuttal.
Good afternoon. Canstein also, well, in terms of mandatory vaccination, Professor Canstein talked about not considering mandatory vaccination, reason being it could pose an infringement on persons. This would impose infringement on persons because it should be persons' own personal choice if they want to take vaccines. It was seen in the Human Rights Declaration Action 2, where persons should be able to have their own personal choice where they have in terms of medical choices. It was also, although that they may say that the vaccine may help with the economy, it was seen that some vaccines were causing an effect to persons' life. So it was, for instance, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine where persons would have had blood clots. This was seen by the MU care, and these blood clots would have mainly been after like 2 weeks that persons were vaccinated. So although the hospitality industry would want to mandate these vaccinations because of the economy, it is still putting persons' health at risk, and by they're putting persons' health at risk, and they're then forcing persons to then have these mandatory vaccinations. This is where the infringement comes with the vaccinations. It was seen in America where 7.4 million people who after receiving the vaccination, the Johnson & Johnson vaccination, it had to be paused because there was not enough validity on the vaccination. In addition, it was also seen in America where although President Joe Biden wanted to mandate the vaccination, the US government also stopped the vaccination for the period of time. So that would have tied in with the Johnson & Johnson vaccination. To close on my rebuttal, I think that although it brings the economy in, we still have to look at the health and the well-being of persons and if they should want the vaccination. Thank you.
Thank you, Rico. So we have Sharisa Hoyt, and I followed by Christina Arthur. So I want to introduce Christina again. Christina, you just take the Zoom floor. All right, so Sharisa Hoyt for team 4 and Christina Arthur for team against. Welcome, the Zoom floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Now, the
afternoon.
opposing team would have mentioned their point, but my team and I stand on the fact that workers in the hospitality industry should indeed be subject to mandatory vaccinations. Why? According to the World Health Organization, significant scientific cooperation has enabled COVID-19 vaccine research, development, and approval to be completed in record time, allowing for the satisfaction of the urgent demand for those vaccinations while maintaining high safety standards. COVID-19 vaccines had to undergo testing through clinical trials to verify that they met globally recognized thresholds for safety and efficacy before acquiring validation from the World Health Organization and national regulatory bodies. This is very much similar to the hepatitis B vaccination and others that is presently required of hotel workers, including the yearly booster shot for flu. So why is it deemed unethical? We resolve that this will improve the health and safety of employees and by extension their friends, family, guests, and patrons, since vaccinations have proven to effectively minimize the risk of death or severe illness in the event that a person does contract the coronavirus. It is the duty of hoteliers and other employers in the industry to decide the best course of action to maintain health and safety in their organizations because of the frequent encounters that hotel personnel have with other people. Now, finding strategies to convince some of the employees to get vaccination is critical, as we are aware that it is also their right to remain unprotected. They must also recognize, however, that it is within management's right to enact such a policy, leaving employees with the position or the option of either complying with the new standards or finding work in a different domain. We cannot have the position of a few individuals place the majority at stake. This gesture will attract customers of the hospitality sector once again, and in turn, it will boost the tourism and hospitality industry, which is a major contributor to the global economy. Having vaccinated staff increases the comfort of guests, it decreases the rate of infection and transmission of the coronavirus, and it can prevent the closure of business in this sector. Now, I'm sure that we will all agree that another closure or lockdown could be detrimental to the state of the gross domestic product. So, as a logical consequence, it is wise to take the appropriate measures to safeguard the industry. As Dr. Kerry Hall would have mentioned, we need to get our people back out to work, and it is necessary to salvage our ailing economy, which is heavily dependent on tourism. To conclude, vaccinations have been proven through time that it is an added bonus of public health intervention, and it will, however, always be accompanied by the movement against making inoculation a mandatory way of life. However, apart from the scientific findings, with considerations being influenced in other areas such as sociocultural, political, economic, and global advancement, the unwillingness to become vaccinated will become a major problem to any country that wishes to grow in the development of the world by encouraging its citizens against this practice. However, employees within the hospitality sector will soon not be given a choice, and the implementation of mandatory vaccination will become a law in order to preserve the success of the tourist sector and best interest of the proposed longevity that the vaccination can have on citizens for the future of humanity. Thank you.
Yes.
I love the team spirit. I love the team spirit that I'm seeing. Shannon, you couldn't stop beaming. All right, so team against. The Zoom floor is yours. Is it Christina?
Good afternoon. As we've presented the factual evidence as to why employees in the hospitality industry should not be subjected to mandatory vaccinations. The cases and the evidence presented today prove that with the use of our credible sources and these three issues are prevailing and should strongly be considered in deciding on whether the vaccine should be mandatory. Through our investigation, it is expected that employees in the industry lack a confidence in the vaccine. According to the American Academy of Family Physicians, the COVID-19 vaccine has yet to be approved by the commercial use by the FDA. Why should this vaccine be trusted in the world-renowned? Why should this vaccine be trusted if the world-renowned FDA, who protects the public health by ensuring that these vaccinations are safe and efficient and acts as a source of security of humans and veterinary drugs, have yet to approve this said vaccine? It is medically proven that persons with underlying health issues, as presented in the case with Brianna Baker, who suffered with shrunken arteries throughout her childhood, if she was to take the vaccine, she would be at risk of contracting myocarditis and blood clots. These individuals are advised not to take the COVID-19 vaccine, yet alone should be forced to inject their bodies to keep their jobs. As written by Olga Kassan, the young men ages 16 to 19 have a 15 in 100,000 chance of being affected by the intake of this vaccine. It is undisputable that persons with pre-existing comorbidities should be at a greater risk of taking this vaccine, as opposed to contracting the virus. Finally, the violation of personal choice and in consideration of individuals' religious belief perpetrates more reasons to not mandate vaccinations. As emphasized by Dr. Kassan previously, if exceptions are not provided for persons with relevant reasons, the vaccination policy would indeed be violating the human rights of vulnerable persons, making this an unethical approach. Thus inferring that if the relevant authorities do not adopt our position against mandatory vaccinations, the industry stands at risk for losing a number of employees who refuse to comply with this mandate. The fourth side also stated a lot of points about the government approving the vaccine and mandating the vaccine. However, the hotel industry and the tourism industry are also owned by a lot of private sector entities, which means that yes, the government does have a say in the decisions that are made, but the private sector also make their own decisions for their employees. If the private sector decides to mandate a vaccine and the government has not decided to mandate a vaccine, it could also cause problems for both sides, including the government and the private sector. The private sector firing employees for not taking the vaccine can also cause a big result for the industry because it will be short-staffed. Along with this, the industry can also be exposed to a stream of lawsuits from employees who desire to defend their human rights, leading to an unpleasant reputation for the industry. In closing, the against side is not saying that we're not for the vaccination, we're just against the mandation of the vaccine. Thank you very much.
All right, students, my final comments. I was speaking to Dr. Roberts et al. Just before you came back on, and I was saying that 2 weeks ago, I spoke at length about distinguishing between government and private sector employers, because then we distinguish how rights arise. Because as I was saying, if you're a private sector company and you are mandating vaccines for your workers, then that's a contractual, a private matter. The state doesn't come in and you don't have constitutional rights being infringed. So we had to be careful about using rights in a very broad context. Whereas if the government is the employer, then constitutional rights may arise because those rights are between the state and an individual. So I am a little bit disappointed that no one really explored this issue, because as I said 2 weeks ago, it would have set the context for your discussion or your discourse. And two, you would look at things that you don't normally focus on. Yes, we tend to put on our blinders, but it's a peripheral point that is important, because the whole issue of mandatory, and that's why I harped on that word. Mandatory is a very funny word. It's not an ordinary word, because if something is mandatory, you might infringe rights, but where and how do these rights arise? So that I was a little bit disappointed in. And overall, I commend the students. I mean, it's not easy speaking in front of an audience, whether live, whatever. It takes work, it takes practice. Not all of us are born with the gift of the gab, and it's always preparation. I think the students were adequately prepared. They cited the sources. I have no issue. I would have loved to see a little bit more in terms of delivery, confidence, body language, exude. You come to the stand and you are able to project, and so your audience, okay, this person knows the subject area, and you command the audience attention from start to finish. Well, overall, good effort.
Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you.
for those comments. We give another round of applause to the teams. Yes. Yes, Dr. Hall.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. It's always very difficult coming after Ms. Griffith because she's so comprehensive in her delivery. I like it because she leaves very little for me to say, which is not necessarily a bad thing under the circumstances. But I would like to commend the students. I was there from the inception, and I saw where they started, and I've seen how they have grown and developed to where they are today. And I am so proud of the progress that has been made over the last several weeks. I think that they brought compelling arguments on both sides. I could tell a lot of research was done. Yes, there were some areas where you could have probably expanded a little more. You have Ms. Griffith upset because she gave you the roll the wicket for you, and that was supposed to be the new ball that would have sparked the whole game. But it may have made the discussion more compelling, but I still think what you gave us was very, very good. And I believe that you would only get better with once you go through several different fora like this one today, where you will build your confidence, because I believe the confidence will come when you'll be able to look into the camera and speak with authority. Once you practice and you do a few more of these, it's going to become second nature to you. But I believe that the research capacity to glean the information that was required to build your arguments was there. And I think it was such a good effort on all of your parts. And I would just like to commend all of you, the ones who were in the debates and the ones who weren't, like Aisha, who put in a real good, Aisha did a real good sidebar job there and bringing a few issues to the table. But I am so happy to be a part of this. I highly commend all of you. I commend Ms. Griffith for the great work that she's done over the last several weeks. I was also a student at her knee like the rest of you, because I learned so much from her. And of course, the indomitable Dr. Roberts for making this all happen, and for being the one to the incubator at UWI to be the springboard for all of you students, where one day you will take over this industry for us. Like you keep saying, old fossils like me, I won't call Dr. Roberts one, I'm a fossil, and I need to step aside and let you young brains, fertile, creative, enthusiastic minds take over. And today was a very good start, and I was just happy to be here to witness it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hall, for those encouraging comments to the students. Are there any questions or comments that you would like to offer up before we go to closing?
I would just like to say thank you to Ms. Griffith, and thank you to you, Dr. Roberts, for giving us this opportunity to push ourselves to be a little better in life,
Well, what I want to say is thank you to you, Dr. Roberts. I mean, you've worked so hard with us. I was saying today that this semester has been one that has been exciting. The projects alone were, mind-blowing to see the information that is out there. And this one it just set the icing on the cake. I really want to thank Dr. Carey Hall as well and Ms. Griffith for their work with us. Congratulations to both Team For, Team Against. It was amazing, amazing. I'm still beaming because I'm sitting here and I'm so proud of you all and proud to be a part of this class. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Jane. Very kind words to your colleagues and myself and the collaborators. Thank you so much. From Marriott Courtyard, we have well done by all. Keep up the good work. Looking forward to meeting you all in the world of work. Apparently there are jobs at Marriott, you guys. So that's a hint, hint. Thank you very much for that heads up, Ms. Brooks. When you get the applications, yes, please review them with a bit more favor than you would the others. Yes, Aisha.
Yes, so that brings me to my point. So thank you for putting that in there, that 2 cents. So I just want to add to sentiments from the World Tourism Conference that we had. And one of the key things that they spoke about was mentorship. And this class has so many ideas and views that I believe can be pivotal in this industry. And as Ms. Hall said, maybe it's time for some of our voices to be heard, let's transition. We don't have to jump right to the top or whatever, but, like learning from all of you is a great experience and you're providing the platforms. So even if we don't get jobs immediately, the mentorship, let me say that the mentorship is needed, we welcome it, and whatever it will be, we will do the research. As you can see, we can do the research and we just really want to learn. I think that this group has the capacity to absorb and to build on all the information that Dr. Roberts has put to us and make us think about issues deeper than we have before. And as a person that's transitioning from culinary, and I told Dr. Roberts this, transitioning from culinary to tourism, she's making me love tourism more and more. And I had a few courses with Dr. Johnson as well. I'm so glad she's here. So I just want to say both of you have done such great jobs with this tourism course and this industry. And I just, make people want to be passionate about this and help Barbados get the research, update the research so that we have up-to-date statistics and stuff like that. So we are here and we are ready. And that is my closing statement. And good job to everyone. Everyone did really good. And I am just happy. I am happy. So yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Aisha, for that excitement that you've ended on, or that exciting note. And I really want to commend all of you, because what I saw from the beginning of the semester and what is before me now is certainly what I would consider growth. You have grown professionally. I mean, there are things that I always tell you, put your camera on, speak properly, and you show up every time. And I really want to thank you for that. And you're not doing it for me, you're doing it for yourselves. You don't know who is seeing you, you don't know who is listening to you. You don't know who is taking note. So always, always show up. Mediocrity is never an option.
No.
Excellence is the only way to be. The UWI degree will open doors for you. You just have to be prepared and walk straight through with your head held high. And so my singular honor now is just to thank Dr. Hall for choosing the UWI to collaborate with. I'm really honored. I know that you have a big tourism destination landscape. You could choose anybody, but you chose us because I know about your passion for the industry and I understand your passion for young people in particular. I also want to thank my friend, Saffron Griffith, for being so excellent in the way she coached you all. I'm sure you've taken away, you felt her personality, you felt her passion, you felt, her investment in your excellence. And I really want to thank her for bringing that perspective to the classroom. You could only be better because of it. I want to thank the industry persons who have taken time to be here. Majdal Rimpo, the management team at the Marriott Courtyard. We feel honored to have you. I want to thank Rayan Flats. I have to always remember, Rayan, you've changed your name. For really doing the artwork on the debate. Thank you so much, and for the support that you have rendered. And I finally wish to thank my head of department for supporting me in every way when ventures like these occur. Now, if you're in a face-to-face, you would have drinks and food, but thankfully we are not the university, as save some money. And I want to thank all the student colleagues, the teams for preparing, for bringing your best game this afternoon, and for your colleagues for coming out and supporting you. You did a good job. And I'm sure you will be rewarded not only in the life hereafter, but you will see it coming up to you very shortly in your grades. Always is what counts for you all, isn't it? So thank you and have a good evening to everyone.